So we're going to talk about translations of parent functions today. I'm going to start with point slope. So right here, I'm going to do that in hot pink. So this right here, this is my point slope equation, and I'm going to switch that into vertex form. So I'm going to say what I need to do to put this in vertex form is I'm going to add this thing right here to both sides, and when I do that I can just circle and move it and change the sign. So that's the same thing. If I add y1 to both sides, it's the same as moving it to the other side and changing the sign. When I rewrite this, I would get y equals m times x minus x1, and then I put this here as a y. Well, when we talk about vertex form, we don't use our x1 and our y1. We're going to change those. So these guys right here, we're going to change this guy and this guy to vertex notation, which uses, right, we use HK in our vertex form instead of x1 and y1 for that point. So I'm going to change those two things. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to erase all this stuff and say this is really going to be h and k. So we've changed our x1, y1 into h and k. Okay. So if I wanted to do the same thing right here to this example, I'm going to move that -3 to the other side. And when I move him, he's going to become positive. So I'm going to take this guy right here, and I'm going to move him to the other side. It's the same as adding it to both sides. And when I do that, I'm going to get this into a vertex form, and I'm going to get y equals, I'm just putting a 1 in for m, x plus 5, and then plus 3, because when I move him, I'm really adding 3 to both sides. Okay. So I have a couple of questions. The first one is, what was the point we put into the formula, point slope formula, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1? Well, when I look at this, I'm going to take away these things. My formula would have been that I only put in this 3 right here, but in order to get this plus sign, so this plus sign right here, I would have had to put in a -5 because I would have really had x minus -5 in order to get that plus sign right there. Okay, so that means that I would have put in a y for my 3. So over here, I'm going to undo this stuff right here just so it's kind of messy. And I'm going to write down that my point that I would have put in would have been a 3 for my y and a -5 for my x. That's what I would have done. Okay, so that's what I put in. What I want you to notice is when I have it here in this form, when I have this guy right here in this form, I want you to notice that this is going to be the opposite sign to this -5 right here, and that this is going to be the same sign. This is the same. So when I have it in vertex form, whatever's inside the parentheses has the opposite sign of the point that I would have put in, and the 3, when I've moved it to the other side, has the same sign in the point. Okay, so what this is telling me is that if I have this equation, y equals 1 times x plus 5 plus 3, that it's moving, it's shifting in a specific way. So inside, it's shifting this way 5, but on the outside, it's shifting up 3. So when I'm doing this, I'm taking it from the origin. Okay. On the next one, I'm going to talk about the absolute value in the same way. I sort of derived where that vertex form comes from. We're going to use that vertex form for our absolute value functions and then again for our quadratic functions. So when I'm looking at my example in green, I want to know how the absolute value function shifts. Well, inside right here, so I'm going to rewrite this and say y equals 1 absolute value of x minus 4 plus 6. I know it's moving this way 4, and it's moving this way 6. So that means that it's shifting 4 right and 6 up. And that's going to translate into my vertex. So I'm saying that if I had an absolute value function and I started at the origin, what it would do, it would give me this new vertex where my x value is 4 and my y value is 6. Same pattern works for my quadratic. So if I have my example in green and it's asking in the question, how does the quadratic function shift? And we know this one is quadratic because it's got a power of 2 right here, right? That makes that a quadratic function. And I know that inside parentheses, it's going to be the opposite sign, so it's moving that way 8. But outside's normal, and that's going to be down 2. So I'm going to say it shifts left 8 and down 2, and that should be from the origin. And then it's asking me what my vertex is, so the vertex is going to be -8 and -2.